chair now recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Dwight Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate HUD effort to respond to the fatal fires in my congressional district in Philadelphia, and Mr. Torres' leadership that he has taken, not just in just his particular district, for what is occurring. So to the regional administrator, I'd like to ask you, can you explain the connection between federal disinvestment, affordable housing shortages, and the increase on the fire risks?
Thank you so much, Congressman, for your question. And yes, we know that far too many people with low incomes, especially people of color with low incomes, live in deteriorating housing. And affordable housing is scarce in Brooklyn and in Pennsylvania, and we must preserve whatever affordable housing that we absolutely can. President Biden supports increased funding to rehabilitate, redevelop public and private affordable housing, and we know that was part of the Build Back Better legislation. It included $170 billion for affordable housing investments, but we also know that there is fire risk and increased older housing stock because safety standards have to be evolved. They have to be modernized. And that's what we keep talking about over and over and over, that even though we have this deteriorating housing stock, we need to make sure that our safety standards are speaking about the issues that we see today. And as we renovate or redevelop housing, we also bring that housing up to modern day safety standards. So more funding is needed. I can talk about that over and over and over. But that funding will help us to improve fire safety and other health and safety concerns for our residents. And so there is a connection between federal housing investments and fire risk. And we know that requires, like we've been talking about today, more funding and more modern safety standards.
I'd like to piggyback real quick. In your view of HUD's position, would you say, what are the consequences of the Senate failure to advance the Building Back Better Act on its critical housing investments?
The consequences are a matter of health and safety, life and death. Right? This hearing today is about tragic fires where there was a loss of life for children and families in 2 states. And so we need funding. And we share that commitment. We share that commitment in making sure that our units are safe. But it is it's a detrimental impact if we don't have the funding that we need. And ultimately, when Congress is able to make substantial investments into affordable housing, we know that our families will be safe. And this conversation around fire safety and folks dying because of it will be addressed. We need more funding. And the problem is if it's not addressed, it passed in the House and did not in the Senate, we need more support. It's detrimental to life.
I yield back. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this hearing, and my colleague from the great state for his leadership. I really appreciate it, as well as Chairwoman Maxine Waters for just having this discussion. I think it's fantastic. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.